And we are here back for another week at Excel Performance Training here for this week's Thrive Training Tip. What we want to talk to you guys today about is overhead pressing for athletes. Some of the things we don't do, some of the things we do, and kind of our thought processes behind this. So obviously as an athlete, we need to have big, strong, stable, and powerful shoulders. One of the most common things that we typically see is just a strict barbell or push press with a barbell. We don't use that as one of our exercises here because whenever we're training athletes, we're not really concerned in making them great weightlifters. We're concerned in making them great athletes. So one of the things that a barbell press does is it locks that shoulder into external rotation as they're forced to press it up overhead. A lot of the people that we see, especially with their overhead athletes, so you got to think baseball players, swimmers, track and field throwers, they have so much shoulder instability, forcing them into that position while they're pressing overhead typically isn't going to be good for them. So one of the first tests that we do before we allow an athlete to press or overhead is just have them reach their arms out over their head. A lot of times you'll find most people can't even do that without sacrificing motion in their lower back, or it'll look like this, hunched over. So if that's the case, what we're going to do is we're going to work on mobility and corrective exercises to where we can get them to be able to press overhead, keeping a strong, stable core. So once we've maintained that, one of our kind of go-to exercises is the dumbbell press. So with our dumbbell press, we actually start all of our athletes out down on the ground. The reason why we do this is because we're working on just having them focus on the shoulder, and so this is less to worry about stabilizing. So we start what's called a tall kneeling position. So both knees are going to be out on the ground. We're having them squeeze their butt, tuck their toe under. We're going to always have them start with this elbow in nice and tight, and as we press up, kind of allow just a slight 45-degree rotation. As we press up, we're making sure we're not rocking back or pushing it up over that way, but our core is tight, glutes are on, pushing it up, having that bicep come in contact with the ear, and then back down. What we're looking for that is kind of that upward rotation or scapular rotation of the shoulder blade, kind of goes up as we're pressing up into the press. Now that's what we do for our traditional athletes, so you'd think football players and athletes like that, but if we have an overhead athlete, one thing that we like to do that's a little bit different is something that's called a bottoms-up kettlebell press. This is a great exercise because what it does is it actually takes all the muscle contribution and focuses it more on the stability component rather than the force production. So we're looking at getting that joint nice and strong and stable before we're worried about pressing overhead. So baseball players, swimmers, track and field, discus and shot put throwers, this is great for them because their shoulder is already in such an overused state. We don't need to force it into a place that it's not ready for. So for the bottoms up press, we start out the exact same way. We're going to start them down into that tall kneeling position, and we're actually going to hold the kettlebell bottoms up. So you can see there's going to be a lot of instability here, but we got to keep everything tight, good strong grip as we press this up over our head. This is a great exercise because, like I said, we're forced to work on the stability component rather than the actual force production. It's much more natural, functional movement for your shoulders, typically when we're looking for those athletes that are in overuse or they're returning from an injury. Now, a lot of gyms don't have a lot of kettlebells, so one of the things that you can do to actually make this exercise more difficult is change your foot position. So we start out in the tall kneeling. This is the most basic way to press. Then from here, we can go to what's called a half kneeling stance or a lunge stance. Whichever knee's on the ground is the arm we're going to be pressing with. Once we've got that mastered down, we can do an iso stance. So we get that back knee off the ground as we're pressing up overhead. So there's a lot more stability I have to work with. Then finally, once we've mastered those positions, we're just going to go to a standing overhead bottoms up kettlebell press. So one of the things that you guys can do to work with your overhead athletes is focus on the stability component rather than the force production. This is going to give your athletes much healthier shoulders, keep them in the game longer, and ultimately, hopefully translate to more wins for your team. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Next season starts now. Our summer program starts June 1st, so please contact us at info@excelperformancetraining.com or 918-949-4223, and always visit us online at excelperformancetraining.com. Thanks for watching this week's Thrive Training Tip. Now back to you guys in the studio.